All right. Good evening, everybody. Sean Dotson here with the flip side. I want to welcome you all to the non-PC beer drinking, thrill of the chase talking show. And tonight I'm drinking a brew from 805 Brewery called Properly Chilled. So I want to give a shout out to Corvette Ronnie, my good friend over there at Gallagher Entertainment of Men Are So Smart. He recommended this beer to me and I've come to like it. So just want to pour my beverage of choice tonight, guys. And say hi to all you guys in the chat room. I see Betty Bodewine. That's a new name I haven't seen. John Ito, 3D Bronze. Robert, I'm not going to pronounce your last name. Cheers to you. Hatchet Jack, Hooley, Marvel Mom, Jan Schultz, 174. And I actually think it was Hooley was the front running bitch tonight in the show. So cheers to you, Hooley. And cheers to all you in the chat room. Thank you, Hooley. Is that how you pronounce his name? Slinzinski. I just totally hatchet that up every time, right? Hatchet Jack. So tonight, guys, I am solo tonight, and there is a good reason for that. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about my opinion and interpretation of the first clue in Forrest Fenn's poem. Now, I am not the authority on the chase. These are just my interpretations and my opinions. Again, I don't have the treasure chest, so this is just my opinions. And most of the stuff, and really by the title, if you go back and you read the title of tonight's show, it says the answer to the first clue, Warm Waters Halt, and Forrest Fenn's poem, question mark. That means that this is not a statement. This is to be taken as a question. Is this the answer to the first clue in Forrest Fenn's poem? So punctuation is important, people. I'm not trying to say that I know what the answer is. This is just, again, my interpretation. We all have opinions. We all have interpretations, but our interpretations and opinions are not confirmation of what Forrest Fenn's words, are. They're not the confirmation of it. So I'm not saying that anything that I share with you guys tonight is actual fact. This is just, again, my interpretation. And some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about tonight may be very elementary, very simple. And I think that that's good. And probably a lot of people are going to see confirmations of their own solve in stuff I share tonight. So if that's true, you're welcome. And some of the stuff I shared tonight might be confirmations that you still don't think I know anything. Again, you're welcome. Because all I know is I know nothing. We just have beliefs and interpretations and opinions. Tonight, these are going to be mine. So, there's been a lot of debate going back a while now about what is important, knowing what Warm Waters Halt is or where Warm Waters Halt. And I've been of the opinion, sometimes pretty strongly, that I think where Warm Waters Halt are more important than what Warm Waters Halt is. And there's been quite a lot of back and forth on that. And debate is good. Sometimes it can get heated and get a little out of control. I've been known to do that too. So what I've come to realize is I've never really provided anybody any kind of evidence or why I personally believe that way. So tonight I'm really going to do that. I've always kind of stayed away from my interpretation of the clues because I didn't want to muddy the waters any more than I think they already are. Because one, again, like I've always said, I'm not an authority. So this could be muddying the waters. And maybe it could be clearing the waters. I don't know. That will be up for your interpretation and your opinions. So I've been saying for a few years, and you can go back and you can try and find this, but I've said many times that Warm Waters Halt is not the first clue. Where is? Now, let me quantify that and let me go back over something that really give me 1 second here. I'm just answering something. That I'll get to that. it goes back to my evolution of a poem purist. And if you've watched that video, I really talk about, you know, when I first got into this chase, just like everybody else, I made some pretty naive assumptions about what I thought words and phrases meant within the poem. And then armed with those things, I jumped on the blogs and the forums and the video logs on FenTube and everything else, and found that a lot of these naive beliefs that I thought about key things in the poem were being echoed throughout the community. So what was I to do? You know, there's people that have been in this years before I was. So how was I supposed to catch up? Well, I kind of just followed the herd mentality and believing, you know, said ideas like Madison Junction could be where warm waters halt. And then armed with that, you know, I took my traditional trip to the Yellowstone. And then I came back and realized that I was just following down so many rabbit holes. And if it was truly important for us to figure out the correct starting point, then how do we do that? And there was a couple of featured Q&A, you know, questions and answers that came out of Jenny's site that really centered me around where I'm going to go down this. And guys, it's hard to put these thoughts into actual words, and I know some of you guys understand that. So let me go over this. Let me go back over here. I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions and stuff, and I will try and answer some of those as we get through this, but let me get through these thoughts and then we can do that. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. So this is one of the first featured Q&As that came out, and this is the one that came out from well, this is the Steve R one. Let me find the Phil Bayman one. Oh, no, I had it right. This is the one that came out from Phil Bayman. It says, someone unfamiliar with the poem receives a message that says, meet me where warm waters halt, somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe. Would they be able to work out where to go? If they can't, would they need the whole poem, another stanza, or just a line or word to help them along their way? Phil Bayman. And Forrest Fenn responds, there are few words in the poem that are not useful in finding the treasure, Phil, but it's risky to discount any of them. You oversimplify the clues. There are many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt, and nearly all of them are north of Santa Fe. Look at the big picture. There are no shortcuts. And then he responds in a very similar question, like a couple weeks later, to this guy, Steve R., or Steve, I guess is his name. He says, dear Forrest, you tell us that we should find where warm waters halt before trying to solve any other clues. Imagine that we haven't seen the rest of the poem, and all we have to go on is begin it where warm waters halt, somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe. Do you think that we can confidently determine the starting place for your treasure trail? Steve. And then Forrest Fenn responds, no, if all you have to go on are those two clues, you cannot proceed with confidence. Look at it this way. If you were making a cake and you left out a few ingredients, would you achieve your goal? I'm going to stop sharing here really quick. Let me get the chat up really quick so I can see what you guys are chatting about. Cheers, guys. Hello, world famous gamer. So out of those two questions from Phil Bayman and Steve, we're able, what Finn is basically saying is that just with that information, somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe, and begin it where warm waters halt, one cannot proceed with confidence in finding the correct starting point. One needs more information. One needs more ingredients. You're oversimplifying the clues. Look at the big picture. I'm paraphrasing a lot of different things out of those two things. So, you know, it made me think that we cannot find the correct starting point with just that first clue, or what Forrest Fenn says is the first clue, begin it where warm waters halt. Because if there are many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt, how are we able to isolate that correct one place? And what I'm posing here is, what if we're not thinking the right thoughts? We're not looking at the bigger picture. We're oversimplifying the clue. Now, everybody knows I'm a 9 sentences, 9 clues kind of guy, right? We all know that. But let me ask this question. And this is a question that Forrest has said many times, and this is a question that I've posed to other searchers, and that is, how deep is a hole? How long is a piece of string? These are questions that we know Forrest Fenn has said many times. He said, what color is a daffodil? How long is a piece of rope? How long is a piece of string? How deep is a hole? Why does he ask us those questions? And I've asked searchers several times, many here recently. You know, I sat down with a couple in Pagosa Springs and asked them the same question. I sat down with Ben and Christy Fiorella at Femboree, asked them the same question. There's several other searchers I've asked, and I never get a very good response without talking more with those people. Now, if you've ever listened to an audio interview with Forrest Fenn called On the Road with Charlie, and there was one that he did, I think it was in 2 parts. Hi, Iron, I see you in there. There was 2 parts, and this came out in May of 2017. And I'll put the link to this audio in the description of the video below, so you can go back and you can fact check me if you want on this. But Forrest Fenn says in there, let me read this verbatim so I don't mess it up here. Take me a second to get down to this one. I didn't have it prompt up. I want to make sure I get it right. And this is where Charlie, who he says is Cole in here, and you can look this up on Terry Scant by doing a simple keyword search on the word string. And Cole asks, do you think there's a chance that no one will ever find it? And by it, I think he's talking about the treasure. And Fenn responds, is there a chance? You're asking me, how long is a piece of string? Is that what? And then Forrest Fenn says, there's no answer to that, you know? He's saying there's no answer to how long is a piece of string. And why is that? Why is there no answer to that question? And that really comes down to there being a difference between the words the and a. And those are things that we call the articles of grammar. Now, guys, I am no grammar expert. I am not an English major. I don't claim to be. So you're going to have to look all this stuff up because I won't get everything right. As much research and everything I've done into our own language, I still forget stuff and get it wrong. It's kind of like that quote, you know, that Forrest quotes Mark Twain. It's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just isn't so. We think we know what our words mean, but we really don't, and we sometimes use them erroneously. So we must know the difference between a and the. And this goes down to basically determiners, quantifiers, and the articles of grammar. These are these little key words that modify and precede any noun that we use. And we all know a noun is a person, place, or thing. And Forrest Fenn said in that same interview on the road with Charlie, you can't ignore any of the nouns in that poem. Now, why would he say that? Why would he say we can't ignore any of the nouns in that poem? You know, this is just supposed to be a poem, right? It's not supposed to be a work of grammar, and grammar's not supposed to be important, right, guys? Punctuation doesn't matter, all this stuff, okay? Why would he say you can't ignore any of the nouns? Well, there's these little key words that precede all of our nouns, and they're called your determiners, your articles, and your quantitives. And the ones I'm really talking about tonight are the articles of grammar, and they're the 3 words a, and the. Okay, so basically a or an are the same things. You use one before, you know, a consonant, one before a vowel, depending on what the noun is. But basically a and is called the indefinite article. That means it is an unspecified noun, or pretty much like a common noun. It's just anything, a piece of string, right? But then the is what we call the definite article, which represents a very specific or singular noun, a very defined noun. And it's kind of like a magician. When a magician is going to play a card trick on you, and he pulls out a deck of cards. He shuffles them, does all this stuff, and he fans them out. What does that magician say to you? He says, pick a card, right? What does that, you, the person that he's talking to, tell you? That tells you that you can pick any card you want. Now, if that magician was to use the definite article the and say, pick the card, what are you going to think? You're probably thinking to yourself, what card? You know, are we supposed to have a prior common knowledge between each other that I'm supposed to pick a card that you want me to pick? But you don't have that. If he was to say, pick this card or that card, which he'd be using a demonstrative, article before that noun, then you would be thinking, okay, which card is he pointing at? He's saying this card or that card, but he's not pointing at one. So I don't know which one he's looking at, which one he's pointing at, or anything. But he normally says pick a card to indicate to you that you can pick any card that you want out of those 52 cards. Very simple, right? Sorry, guys, I got a lot of notes here. And this is probably going to be a really quick video because I'm just going to get this stuff out there and then let you guys mull it over and answer a few of these questions I know that are flying by here I can see over in the chat room. So really, it comes down to there's really no answer to that question that Forrest Fenn poses. How deep is a hole? How long is a piece of string? How long is a piece of rope? What color is a daffodil? Because we don't know which hole, which piece of string that he's talking about. There's many pieces of strings out there, right? There's many holes out there to choose from. We don't know which one. There's many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt. We don't know which one he's referring to because he's using the indefinite article a before the piece of string, before a hole. We don't know which one, right? We have no idea. Now, are we simply oversimplifying what we believe is that first clue, which is begin it where warm waters halt? Are we not looking at the entirety of the bigger picture? Are we not interpreting what is the correct first clue or the entire first clue? Now, to me, that entire first clue is begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. He states in there the canyon. What we should be focusing on is he's using the definite article the before the canyon. What that indicates, you know, in my interpretation of everything, is that we should know which canyon he is talking about. It's the canyon. Now, if Forrest Fenn would have used the indefinite article a before canyon and said, begin it where warm waters halt and take it in a canyon down, not far, but too far to walk. That takes, in my opinion, in my interpretation of everything, it takes the importance off of what canyon he's talking about and then focuses it back on you needing to determine exactly precisely what warm waters halt is, so that then you can pick out everything else and marry it to the rest of the poem. So in my interpretation, I think what the focus is that we should be focusing on the canyon. And this was a bit of the epiphany that I had a few years ago, was that if all the information we need to find the treasure is in the poem, and all we need is the clues in the poem to find the treasure, as he says in many different ways, then the information to find that correct starting point is wholly contained within the poem. And if he's being specific and telling us take it in the canyon down, then we should already know which canyon he's talking about. Now, there's people, you can determine wherever you think that information for that comes out of. But I think that then focuses back on not what warm waters halt as being the important thing, but actually the where. Because there are many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt. How do we isolate that single one? Again, it's like that magical trick. You have to determine Excuse me, my son is yelling at me from the other side of the door over here. But cheers, guys. Hope you guys are following me on this. Again, I think it's very simple grammar. A lot of people don't want English lessons. We all think we know what our words mean. You know, I thought I did. You know, when I went and I really read that whole thing about the difference between or the and a and understanding the articles of grammar, there is no indefinite article within that poem. Everything is definite. You've got the canyon, the home of Brown, the meek, the end, the gold, the cold, the answers. You don't have anything that's an indefinite article. And then you have all the possessive pronouns prior to the other nouns in there. My trove, my treasures, your creek. I give you title to the gold. You know, there's all these different little key words that mark all the different nouns that float throughout the poem, and you can't ignore any of the nouns in there. And again, I think that the box is simply the poem, and I think that all the information that we need to find the treasure is wholly contained within the poem. So again, I was. It goes back to, and I'm gonna share my screen here really quick for you guys. Let me pull this up. You guys can see something here. Give me a second. Okay, hope you guys can see this. Now what I'm showing you guys here is a screen capture from Chase Chat that came from Stephanie Longacre. And this is a now deleted thread. You can't find this anymore. It's not around there. But when this came out, I knew it was important. And this came out, I want to say it came out in it was either, I think it was 2018. And it really stood out to me because in here, and you guys got to know the history of all this, but it now has come out. I don't have Cynthia's book, but this is now posted in Cynthia's book, as in this was email back and forth between Stephanie Longacre and Cynthia. So what Stephanie is posting here actually came from Cynthia. And you guys can read this here, but the key part in here I want you guys to look at comes down here, right here, where he says, Forrest Fenn had told her that I have to read each or every word and understand its meaning. Sorry, my wife's texting me something. I have to read each or every word and understand its meaning. Duh, well, that seems obvious. We all should be going through the poem and reading everything. He said, what is the difference between the word the and the word a? Now, when I saw this, I was kind of shocked because I had never heard Forrest Fenn ever say that openly in any, interview, any featured Q&A, anything, any kind of super secret email or anything until this came out. And I said, whoa, I said, he told this to somebody, and I had to do some research to figure out exactly who that was. And I did find that out and confirm that it was through Cynthia. And I was just kind of shocked at that because, to me, that is pointing out the importance of grammar, because, the articles of grammar, in my opinion, are a cornerstone of understanding nouns and their importance when you're talking about a specific or a very general noun in itself. So I thought that was very key that got shared, and that I had never seen that with anybody else before. And I know that this is now in Cynthia's book, and it's for everybody to see now. It's out there. But I just thought that was like, wow, a big eye opener that he's pointing out, the importance of grammar to Cynthia back. And that was in 2014, a year before I ever got in the chase. And 2 years before I ever really realized, that the possibility that key article, the definite article, the, may be important in understanding, the first clue and potentially nailing down that correct starting point, if we believe all the information to find the treasures in the poem, and you can find the treasure chest with just the clues. So then the information to find that correct starting point should be wholly contained within the book. Sure, there's subtle hints that may help you with the clues in the book, But again, they can be very subjective to your interpretation of the 32,000 words in the poem. So again, I think that we are oversimplifying that quote unquote first clue, begin it where warm waters halt. Again, warm is completely subjective. You could look up the book Historic American Indian Dolls. And in here, Forrest Fenn on page 11 gives a different interpretation of the word warm. He says in here, and I'm going to get to your guys' questions here. I know there's going to be a lot. Where did I say? Anyways, you guys can find it in here. I'm going to sit here for half an hour trying to find it. I didn't. But he talks about, that there's a warm friendliness from one of these dolls. And I'll find it and I'll post it in here in the link or the comments below. I think I actually posted it over on Harry's for people to see. And then also there was a featured Q&A about the American Indian dolls with Forrest Fenn on Jenny's site, where he talks about there's a comfortable warmth that comes from an old antique doll like that. So he's giving different interpretations of warm. So warm doesn't always have to mean, quote unquote, a temperature. It can mean something else, like being comfortable, being calm, being friendly, where comfortable, calm, friendly waters halt. Right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a temperature. This is just the flip side of looking at different interpretations or meanings of words. But again, I think those little words that indicate our nouns are very key. And like Forrest Fenn said, you can't ignore any of the nouns in that poem. And where he specifically told Cynthia, you've got to understand the difference between the and a. And I was watching Mike and Christie's show the other day about warm waters halt, where they brought up that exact quote that Cynthia quotes when talking to Finn about that in there. And it seemed like they kind of picked up on it, but they really didn't catch it. And again, this is just my interpretation. It may not anything, may be completely elementary, and you guys are like, no big deal. And that's fine. It may not be a big deal. I can be completely wrong. And that's a good possibility, So who knows? Cheers, guys. I'm going to go ahead and search up in here and see more questions. Hey, Alan, how are you doing, bud? Alan, I keep looking for that Flipside Ale from Sierra Nevada. I don't think we have it here. I may have to go somewhere to find it. Jack, how are you? Kurt Hensley, nothing about that. Treasure Hunter, how are you? Chroma Key, Mr. T, Juno Hedwicks, what does he say? Learning how to get WWH opens up the poem, allows you to use the same method to crack other clues, but not all of it, not all of them. That's why it's so important at the flip side. Sure. To me, that understand, I don't know if you're talking about what I'm talking about here, Juno. Again, I'm trying to catch up with everything here, but understanding how important I think that key word, the, is in the poem is important. Sure. Is it the key? I don't necessarily know. I think like Forrest Fenn says in that whole, or tells Cynthia that there's key words in every line of that poem. And I agree with that. I think that there's all kinds of different words. Again, like Forrest Fenn says, when you first look at that poem, it looks like simple words, but trust me, I worked on that thing for years. I felt like an architect crafting it. May not get that exactly. I'm completely paraphrasing from Moby Dickens interview, but it's true. If he took, 15 years, 20 years, whatever you want to call it, in crafting this thing, and every word is deliberate in there, then he chose those words deliberately, just like he chose the commas, the periods, the semicolon, everything else. They're very key in there. Hello, world famous gamer. Kurt Hensley, I think I said your name. Iron, hey, what's up, Iron? How are you? Jorg Mohin, I'm probably messing that up. Colo Brado, how are you? Silver Fox, Ryan, what's going on? Rusty Nipples, Bill Gorman, how are you? 23 Monarca, Davio 22, my brother from another mother. Nothing about that says, you're too philosophical. You have to read the book and study it for thousands of hours. It's just hard work, dude. So you're always at the same level. There's, I think that the poem is the most important part. I think that really is the box that we need to get back in. But Forrest Fenn has said there's subtle hints within the book that can help you. If you need help and you think you need it, just like some other searchers say, why not use the book? That's fine. I personally look at it. I enjoy the book. Sure, I still look through it and look for things that trip up in my mind, but I know that those things may be subjective or subject to my own personal biases. So it's hard to find something in there and go, oh yeah, that confirms this. And then I get led down some rabbit hole. But nothing about that. I'm not discounting the book. If you think that that's important and you want to go down all that, great. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I look at it from a different approach. That's all. Kurt Hensley says, nearly all are north of Santa Fe. Why not south? Temperature, colder north? Again, there are many places in the Rocky Mountains. And I've said it before. You know, what happens to water just before it goes into any canyon? Any canyon. So there are many places in the Rocky Mountains where warm waters halt, and nearly all of them are north of Santa Fe. In the Rocky Mountains, there sure is a shitload more canyons north of Santa Fe than there are south of Santa Fe. And he's even eliminated a couple of canyons, hasn't he? Or the gorge, Rio Grande Gorge, he's eliminated that, right? I'm just saying that we may be looking, if we're trying to think that what warm waters halt is a geothermal feature, then, you know, sure, there could be many of them south of Santa Fe. There could be many of them north of Santa Fe, but maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing. What if we are focusing on the wrong thing? That being trying to figure out what warm waters halt is, you know, just my opinion, guys. Again, doesn't make it right. Just my interpretation. Iron, flip side, in my opinion, he said you can find the treasure with just the poem. So if you can't find the start with just where warm waters halt, then it argues that the first stanza identifies. Sure, a lot of people believe that, Iron. A lot of people believe that in order to find the correct geographical location, that the correct place where warm waters halt resides in may fall within the first stanza. I'm not saying that's wrong. I personally don't believe that, but I don't have the treasure chest. If you believe that, that's great. You know, you may be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think differently. How deep is a fire hole? I don't know, Bill. We only know one fire hole, right? The fire hole. Anyway, William, I named one of my wife's attitudes the flip side because it remembers everything I did wrong. Yep. Denise Baker, the flip side, because the nouns are answers to the poem clues, they are the places on a map. Well, I don't think, if you're talking about the nouns as in, you know, the canyon, the home, the cold, the answers, what else? The gold, the meek. I mean, meek is actually an adjective, right? It's describing somebody who's timid or placid or whatever. But when you place the definite article before that adjective, it turns that adjective into a noun, which is describing all those people that are timid, are indifferent, and everything else. So it is changing that adjective actually into a noun. But you're saying that the nouns are answers to the poem clues. They are places on a map. Could be. You know, I mean, there's some people that believe that the 9 clues only exist between, you know, begin and cease. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I don't, in my interpretation, I don't see it that way. But if that's the case, then what do you do with the whole line, your effort will be worth the cold? What does that mean, right? The cold. I've said, you know, the only thing that you're going to find that's probably cold within the entire Rocky Mountains throughout the year is water. You know, your effort will be worth the cold. So I've hem and hawed that there possibly is a water crossing within the poem. You know, I think so. Doesn't make it right. Just my interpretation. But is that a place? You know, is that talking about a specific place? Maybe. Colorado Battle. The flip side, the key to where warm waters halt has been from there. From there relates directly to where, and there, yeah, sure. You want to begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. Is it talking about one specific place? Not several different places. It could be talking about one place. It could be describing the canyon, right? And then it says, put in below the home of Brown. Then the next line is from there. Well, from where? From the starting point. Is he describing the complete starting point within that second stanza? And then from there, it's no place for the meek. The end, what is the end? Again, there's that indefinite article before the noun end. What is the end? It's the end, our destination where the treasure chest rests, the end of his rainbow and the treasure, two different locations, possibly. But it cannot, in a standalone meaning, tell us the correct where warm waters halt, but it is key. Yeah, it's not, again, I've said before, if you could figure out the correct where, what warm waters halt may not be necessary. It may be obvious at that point, and at that point it really doesn't matter. If you have the correct where, what warm waters halt is becomes irrelevant because you already got the correct starting point, right? Denise Baker, the flip side, but Fenn said first clue was begin it where warm waters halt. This doesn't seem to have an article. Sure. Is he telling you all the truth? If he is sitting there and telling Phil Bayman that he's oversimplifying the clues and he's not, and he needs to look at the bigger picture because there's no shortcuts, what's the bigger picture? Is it the entire poem? Is it the rest of the clue that he is oversimplifying? That's how I interpret things. It doesn't make it right. You could still think that the first clue is begin at where warm waters halt and the second clue is take it in the canyon down, right? Now, if he would have, again, like I said, if he had said, take it in a canyon down, then what is the emphasis then going to be on? Not on the canyon. It's going to be on you trying to figure out what warm waters halt is, right? But he doesn't say that. He says, take it in the canyon down. Cheers. Remember, his father told him it's always best to tell the truth, but maybe not all of the truth. If you would have come out and said, hey, the first clue is that complete sentence, then it would be more obvious that the 9 clues could be the 9 sentences, right? And then why does he say in that whole interview between him and Doug Preston, it says, it's not just a word, it's a craft. And then he says immediately after that, it's not just a sentence, it's a craft. Why would he even say sentence? Why wouldn't he say line? Why wouldn't he say stanza? Or something like that. Why would he say sentence? It's a poem. Denise Baker, the flip side, we know where warm waters halt must be a specific place on a map. Sure. Denise Baker, you are chatty. Flip side, my solve ends in a long winding hole which seems to go on forever. Yeah, it's called the biggest freaking rabbit hole ever. Sheets Trove, the flip side, present from MS. Is that Mississippi? William, flip side, is that my mom on the calendar? No, that's Dean Snyder from Twisted Sister. Yeah, that's my map I got from the Fifth Wall Escape Rooms. Yes, out there in Detroit, our good friend Todd Birmingham. Neo, a canyon with no name. Corvette Ronnie, flip side. And is it actual water? What are we talking about, Ronnie? What are you talking about? And is it actual water? You'd have to give me more context of what you're talking about. We've talked a lot about here, and I'm just trying to catch up with questions and stuff before I move on. I think I'm catching up. Jason Dent, flip side. What's up, Jason? How are you? You have the best shows. Okie doke. I don't know about that. Davio 22, you all have Jason Dent, flip side, the best shows, Corvette Ronnie. Yes, we're all having fun, guys. That's the point. The flip side, meaning of every word or words that makes a meaning. Okay, I lost you there. Tom Sawyer starts in Yellowstone National Park. Who knows? It might. Denise Baker, the flip side. Yes, the name of the canyon is in that same stanza. Okay, possibly. Catch up. I think I've caught up. Rodney Greenway, I agree with Jason Dent. You crush it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Guys, I this whole thing about the whole what was it that FinTuber review over on Reddit? I never had any ambition of being some #1 show out there. It's just about having fun, and there's been a lot of some strife that has happened within the community that caused some competition, which, it is what it is. I never have any aspirations to be the #1 show. I mean, there's a lot of times where I've thought about just going dark and not doing any more shows just because of, some of the negativity that's out there and crap that's going on. But again, this is my thrill of the chase. This is fun for me. Sometimes it hasn't been fun, and sometimes you got to call things out and not just let the status quo be the status quo. But it is what it is, sometimes, I'm human. I make mistakes and I say things or do things probably not the best way. And I think we all can admit that we're not perfect and we make mistakes. But we try and rectify those things, with what happened unfortunately, between David and K-Pro. That was not something I was going to stand for, even though even K-Pro and I at the time were on the rocks. But I did not agree with what David did. David knows I was disappointed in that. And that was that. There's certain things I just won't. There's a line I won't cross either. And I'm very passionate about this. And I think that comes out emotionally sometimes, and things that I've said in the past. And it is what it is. I'm human, just like everybody else. So again, guys, I've talked a lot about why I believe where Warm Waters Halt is more important than what Warm Waters Halt is. Because if there are many places in the Rocky Mountains where Warm Waters halt, then how do we isolate that single one? I don't think it is. I mean, we're just going to do a brute force method. And if you believe it's a geothermal feature, that's a complete assumption based on, the book, his love for Yellowstone, and then you get Too Far to Walk, river bathing is best. I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'm just saying, even if you think that it is a geothermal feature, how are you going to isolate that one out of the many? Are you going to physically go to each and every one and go looking for a canyon and then a home of brown? That's a brute force method. Is that a way to do it? Sure. I personally think that's like throwing darts at a dartboard. But okay, that's your style. That's not the way I choose to do it. I choose to focus on the poem. And then when I saw that the poem was telling me that it is the canyon, not just a canyon, then to me that focus took off on trying to find out what Warm Waters Halt is and trying to isolate the canyon. Because he's putting that definite article before it. He's indicating to us readers that we are supposed to know what canyon that is. And if all the information we need to find the treasure is in the poem, and you can find the chest with just the clues, then all the information you need to find that correct starting point should be wholly contained within the poem. I know some people don't agree with that. That's just my interpretation of Forrest Fenn's words. My interpretation is not confirmation of his intent. It's just my interpretation. And I've never really given you guys any kind of solid feedback on my interpretations of the clues. This is a big one. It's the one, right? The first one. And you can take it from there. So guys, that's pretty much the show tonight. We were going to do a panel discussion this evening with some other friends, and we were going to talk about, knowledge and imagination and how those two coincide with interpretations of the poem. I still want to do that. I'm going to plan to try and shoot to do it next week. We originally had to call, trying to get Sasha in here, trying to get Christy Fiorella and some others. But I felt it was really important to do this show tonight and to get this and just put it out there and kind of let people know where I'm coming from when it comes to the whole what versus where debate. Again, it's my interpretation. Doesn't make it right. It's just how I interpret things. So I hope you guys have a better understanding of how I guess this poem purist thinks and interprets things. I'm sure there may be volatile effects, outside of YouTube out there in the forums, and it's somewhat to be expected. And I know the players. Again, like Forrest Fenn says, if you don't have a program, you don't know the players. Well, I know the players. So I know where some of this is going to come from, and it's expected, and that's okay. I can usually ignore it. But it is what it is. So guys, it's been fun. I still got a little bit of beer left, but I'm going to go enjoy it with my family. And Tuesday, we are going to have a panel discussion. I'm going to try and get those individuals together, and we're going to do a panel discussion talking about knowledge versus imagination and how those two coincide with interpreting the poem and getting us to the correct starting point. And then, is it just knowledge that gets us there to the correct starting point or ending point? And then do we need our imagination to then coincide in understanding the clues to figure out where the treasure exactly is? I don't know. And that's what the discussion is going to be kind of be centered around. So I'm trying to get some of those imaginative minds and some of those pragmatic minds together to talk about those things. So you guys get kind of a balance of all that. So I hope you guys look forward to that show. Wanted to keep it short tonight for you guys because it's just me solo tonight and want to go spend some time with the family. So hope you've enjoyed it. Like to ask at the end of the show, if you like the show, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, that's okay. There's another button for you because I care what you guys think. I don't care what YouTube thinks. I don't care about anything else. I care what you viewers think about the show. And it's my opinion. Again, if you don't like my opinion, that's okay. That's your turn to voice that. And I'd like to hear your comments. I'm interested to go back through the chat and see some of your guys' comments later. And we'll talk to you guys in the comment section. And we hope you guys have a good night. So we will catch you all on the flip side. We'll see you guys. Have a good night.